Hello everyone, this is Trackpad Artist, and welcome back to our continued exploration of Ring. Last week, we began our discussion into the expansive faiths and cults of Ring, discussing their tenets, nature, and practices of faith, looking into worshippers both of gods fallen and celestial. This week, however, we'll be turning our focus back onto one of the fundamental aspects of Ring, returning to our discussions surrounding Ring's orders of magic, specifically magic's order of blood. In exploring this order of the arcane, we'll be reviewing what we know about blood magic, discussing its uses and limitations, before exploring its many unconventional branches of practice and study. Afterwards, we'll look into our particular practitioner of these magics, a wandering merchant who patrols desolated fields in search of blood and flesh, distributing wares to the desperate in exchange not of coin, but of blood. Getting into the discussion proper, let's briefly review the nature of Ring's magic. Magic, in and of itself, is cast through a mage's intent, rather than a verbal incantation or particular movement. As magical energies flow through the body, a mage's focus shapes it, and pushes it out through an expulsion point, typically the fingers. As such, a mage's focus and willpower have an incredible effect on the potency and precision of the magic they cast. Because of this, even though technically unnecessary, many mages employ the use of verbal incantations within their casting in order to better align their minds with their intent, as even the slightest subconscious deviation in casting can come with many unintended consequences. With casting coming from intent, many come to think of a mage's limitless possibilities, and although mages can get incredibly creative with the use of their magic, there are still many factors which dictate magic's application. Magic is confined by the essences carried on a mage. Particular casts require particular essences, and without sufficient of the needed essence, certain casts become impossible, as all magic is completely reliant on essence. Furthermore, there are inherent laws which bind each order of magic. If a mage is looking to accomplish something specific, they will only be able to do so through a specific order. These laws apply to every order of magic, and are unique to each of them, serving as an order's limitations to their abilities, which is what allows for such distinctions in order to be made. Blood magic, in particular, is a deep crimson red when confined to glass. It is understood to be the art of manipulating the flow of blood. Although generally easy to cast, the difficulty of this order comes from the anatomical knowledge necessary in order to produce a desired outcome. This order of magic is largely used in conjunction with medical procedures, serving as an accelerant to the body's natural healing processes through the altering of blood flow to either mitigate blood loss or accelerate the movement of nutrients to particular areas of the body. These healing energies, however, take time to take effect, with the proper casting of such magics requiring constant contact with the subject, needing several minutes before manifesting a caster's intent. This fact limits blood magic's effectiveness within combative or emergency settings, as causing any harm to another, or even healing oneself, would take time unavailable within such a situation. This casting time is a large factor which contributes to blood magic's selective use, as these long casting times make blood magic the only order unable to manifest immediate effects. Even with this extended casting time, it is important to emphasize that blood magic is not a miracle worker, nor a cure-all, and finds its best use alongside medicine, rather than as a strict alternative. However, this all isn't to say that blood magic hasn't found its niche of use, as blood magic has found many uses throughout its eras of practice, which, through its controversial branch of biomancy, has become even the foundation necessary to produce the arcane mineral of glass. Biomancy is the practice of altering and manipulating living tissue through a combination of surgical and arcane means, a process which has proven to be necessary in order to refine arcane glass. This procedure involves the grinding and liquefaction of the unrefined material, before having it injected into the bloodstream of a living organism. Although the specific reactions that take place within an organism are known only to the brass lotus, it is theorized that blood and glass's inherent connection to the arcane combine in some way, giving form to a refined product. After several hours of exposure to the unrefined product, the mineral purifies, solidifying once more in its transparent, crystalline structure. As one can imagine, this procedure is fatal under every circumstance, as are the near entirety of all procedures involving the use of biomancy. As such, biomancy is forbidden by law by decree of the Brass Lotus, with particular exceptions involving lotus supervision. Biomancy is not limited to the refinement of glass, as the altering of the body has come to develop hundreds of breakthroughs within fields of arcana and medicine. One of the most influential discoveries brought about by this branch of magic is the widespread use of prosthetics, artificial replacements for parts of the organic body. Although something seen widely through history, as well as the modern era of reality, within the world of Ring, Biomancy has proven to allow for a more direct connection with an organic body and its prosthetics, forming a direct connection with the host's nervous system, which by extent allows for complete control of such prosthetic contraptions. These procedures of grafting prosthetics, although originally seen as controversial, have since been given approval to perform under Brass Lotus supervision, allowing all manner of commoner and noble alike to continue their lives even after grave mishaps within them. However, not every man who sheds their flesh does so out of necessity, with some people's fascination of the mechanical developing into a form of twisted faith. Those who undergo such a faith-driven mechanical transformation profess themselves as the cult of perfection, a collection of isolated monks who confine themselves to lonely mountain monasteries to adore the god of machines, Dwes, the glass emissary. The cult of perfection, composed of mortals who strive to emulate Dwes, embodies a fervent belief in the supremacy of artifice and machinery over organic life. They perceive the mortal body as inherently flawed, and seek to transcend those limitations through mechanical augmentation and mental conditioning. Devotees may replace limbs with intricate prosthetics, enhance their senses with implanted machinery, or even undergo full-body conversion into clockwork automatons. They believe that by shedding their organic weaknesses, they can achieve a state of perpetual efficiency and unwavering loyalty, mirroring the perceived perfection of Dwes and his ring guard. Adherents may subject themselves to rigorous mental training and indoctrination, seeking to eliminate emotional impulses and independent thought. They believe that emotions and free will are sources of imperfection, and that by suppressing them, they can achieve a state of pure, logical obedience to Dwes's divine will. These communities often give rise to a great deal of suspicion within surrounding societies, although these concerns are often quelled by the Brass Lotus's mandated supervision of these monasteries, a mandate by law due to the many arcane procedures that take place within them. This cult, however, is not the only community with ties to biomancy, as a branching faith, known as the Congregation of the Chosen, also delves into the sickly practices of biomancy. These practices, however, unlike the cult of perfection, focus less on the replacement of the body in favor of its refinement. They believe that having a perfect spirit is impossible, as evident by the fall of mortals' past lives. Because of this, the congregation seeks not a spiritual perfection, but a physical one, believing that through the perfection of one's own body, one may once again gain access to their celestial eyes, and as such, be able to recognize their path back to heaven after their passing. Centuries of faith and desperation, however, have clouded the congregation's practices, who have now begun to employ the use of biomagics in their rituals, tearing apart and reforming their bodies to better serve their gods, the most devout of the faith twisting themselves into creatures more akin to monsters than man. These modifications vary from person to person and office to office, with the most extreme changes being seen in the congregation's holy warriors, Trench Knights, who lead the charge against the sworn enemies of the Faith's home province of Afton. Decades of holy war and the circumvention of Brass Lotus supervisions, however, have long since ostracized Afton from the Brass Lotus, who has since cut all ties with the religious zealotry employed by those peoples, severing both material and academic resources to the province and its people. Such a move, however, has done little but embolden these people's ambitions, seeing themselves as a wronged people of perfect faith, now bent on the destruction of all who swear their fealty against them. These communities, however, are only two of several examples of practitioners of biomancy, with several others coming to develop the branch of magic in new and revolutionary ways. However, there is one amongst these peoples whose name rings like the shudder of one's spine, one whose very mention serves as an omen of great calamity. A man, nay, a force, whose every step brings death in its wake. He known only as Thiago, the Blood Merchant. But before we get into that, here's a moment to shill my ongoing projects. I'm currently working on developing a TTRPG rule set for the World of Ring, looking to release it when we as a community can hit 10,000 subscribers. If you've liked the video thus far and would like to support us in reaching that goal, you can subscribe to the channel here or on Patreon to help me get this done. That'll be all. Let's get back to it. Thiago, the Blood Merchant, is the remnant of a long-forgotten war, abandoned by his king and country in favor of more profitable pursuits. Now he is a legend, myth, a boogeyman used to scare the children of war-torn nations, lest they wander too far and fall into his clutches. Thiago is said to wander the lonely expanse of cratered battlements, blood-soaked fields, and scorched earth. The first rumors of his wanderings tracing back nearly 1,000 years. Men claim to catch glimpses of him, carving into corpses of the dead, slinging limbs over his shoulders, heads onto his belt, and flesh into his coat. He is an omen of war, but not entirely a foul one. He is known as a merchant, after all. Those who claim to encounter the man find him in a lone stagecoach, no horse nor ox tied to its reins. These encounters often occur in impossible places, inaccessible to horse nor wagon, and yet every account shares details with one another. An interior, impossibly large, several magnitudes larger than the stagecoach's silhouette, crammed full of bits and bobs of forgotten empires, dead languages, dust-ridden tomes, eldritch riddles. Those who meet the merchant say his voice tears at itself, as if a corpse croaked the very words he spoke. He is an uncannily tall and gangly individual, with the fractured armors plastered onto his form doing little to shield his frame. Arms, grafted sloppily onto his silhouette, reach for trinkets within their grasp, fingers beyond count. A rusted helm, its visor locked with oxidation. An officer's cloak, draped over his shoulder as a cape. Bloodied bandages, concealing graying flesh. Dead? No. This is something else. A pact, perhaps? Not with anything holy. And yet, every customer remains satisfied. Nobody knows the extent of the merchant's stock, yet it seems as though he always has what his customers desire, dealing in ancient lore, forbidden secrets, and hushed whispers, so long as those willing can pay the price. The name, Blood Merchant, is no frivolous title devoid of weight. It is his dealings, an expression of his trade. Secrets demand their pound of flesh, and so too does the merchant. But a warning, those who deal in blood reap it. Customers of the merchant never prove to live full lives, often cut short by tragedy and circumstance. A coincidence? Perhaps, but one that needn't be ignored when dealing with the merchant, lest you too are carried off on his wagon of bodies. Within the current day, Thiago is nothing but a myth, a folk story told to entertain soldiers on the battlefield, to discipline children of the dangers of strangers, and to sow doubt into aspiring scholars. Sightings and dealings with the merchant continue to sprout up all over Ring, but in sporadic patterns, impossible to traverse if each claim is held in high regard. Yet there are those that do believe. Some say he's an angel, forced to inhabit the corpses of the dead to interact with man. Others say he's a demon, a fragment of Zephyr's void fueled by the destruction that it wanders. And some say he's nothing but a man, spurred by his spite for his forgotten king, bent on outlasting every man, woman, and child born onto Ring's faces, damned by none but himself to continuously endure, fueled by nothing but blood. With all that, though, I do believe we have reached the end of today's discussion. If you happen to enjoy this video, please feel free to stick around to watch more of my work. I'd love to see you all around as we continue to approach our next major milestone of 10,000 subscribers. As mentioned previously, when we can hit such a goal, I'll be releasing Ring's first major project, a TTRPG based on its world and magic system. If that's something you'd like to see, you can subscribe to help us reach that milestone, as well as to see weekly dives into Ring's world and lore. Additionally, feel free to leave any suggestions for future topics we should discuss in the comments down below. I am always sure to read every one that comes my way and respond to those I can. For those of you who'd like to go a step further in your support of me and Ring's development, consider becoming a Patreon member to not only support me, but gain access to additional benefits. Such benefits include early access to my content, exclusive Discord permissions and chats, digital downloads of my signed work, and much more. The link to my Patreon, as well as our Discord server, as always, will be in the description. Until next time, this has been Trackpad Artist. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you again soon for our next discussion.